Hello, boxing fans around the world. Thank you for joining us on another special episode of Talking Fight. Today, I'm joined by Randy Nanjat, a really good friend of mine, a Muppet researcher, and also who has a career in human resources. So, before we get on to the real serious stuff, I got to ask, you know, in a boxing match featuring the Muppets, who you putting in the ring, Randy?
Love it. The obvious answer obviously is Animal versus Beaker, because just the noises alone would be too much fun. And just, Animal would never catch him, but just be going nuts, and Beaker just be, all over the place, all kinds of footwork. But if I'm speaking from the heart, I'm saying it's Rolf against anybody. That guy's way tougher than he looks, man. It's like no reach, but all kinds of toughness. So.
I would have said Miss Piggy versus Animal.
Yeah, that's a fair one. Except Miss Piggy's all about the karate chop. She should be disqualified in like the first round, man.
Plus, I don't know if they're in the same weight division, but
that's a whole other story, man. I'm not going there, man.
that's who I would have gone with. The funny thing is just before we came on, I was having a boot through Google, and I typed in something like this. Boxers who appeared on the Muppets, and the very first thing that comes up are Muppets appearing on boxer shorts. I thought, wow. First of all, wow, and then you realize how iconic these Muppet characters are in popular culture. I mean, they truly did make a statement, and yet only, if I'm not mistaken, only lasted 5 seasons as the Muppet Show. Not the movies, but the Muppet Show itself.
Yeah,
notwithstanding their introduction in Sesame Street and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, Jim was actually a huge sports fan, and it's one of those things. So he always tried to integrate, and he wanted it to be open to everybody. But the show, lasted 5 years because he wanted to go off to make movies. He wanted to do other things. Right, the show started that whole thing, and in fact, he wanted to license more and do more and have more appearances. There was a story. It was never published, but I got to learn this the first time I got to visit the Muppet Workshop, that he wanted to have like basically a celebrity boxing match with Kermit and somebody as just a fun publicity stunt at one point. It never worked out, but it would have been hilarious to watch.
Who were the contenders?
I think this was the Tyson era, so I think that was going to be the whole thing, right? It's Mike versus Kermit, and just the two of them, and basically it would have been a battle of them basically talking at each other because the voices would be so high.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I mean, one of the, if you will, similarities between the Muppets, if they're real, between the Muppets and boxing, is this trash talking that goes on. The Muppets are absolutely famous for trash talking their guests.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, you know what? You say that, right? I'm like, Fozzie versus either Styler or Waldorf would have been hilarious. The two guys up in the that heckle them. That would have been a lot of fun. Just see Fozzie go absolutely nuts.
Heck. Yeah, the boy, those two old fellows in the balcony, I remember well, absolutely, and fond memories. But speaking of Mike Tyson, I think they would only fit into his LOL scenario today, given their age, of course.
Yeah, totally, of course. Craziness.
So give us a bit of a parallel here. Boxing, like the Muppets, had basically a lot of life learning lessons interwoven. I mean, this was not a show aimed at kids like it was during its Sesame Street initial run. Jim obviously wanted it to appeal to adults, like The Simpsons. It's more geared towards adults. I'm just kind of curious, when you look at when we talk to a lot of the boxers, a lot of lessons to be drawn from boxing per se as a sport, and also from the Muppets. But whereas one might be more humorous, one might be more serious, there's a lot of life lessons there. So maybe some parallels. Do you see them?
I think the biggest one, and I've always loved this both about boxing and the Muppets, is that the way the Muppets is shot is that you actually at some point see everything from the performer's eyes as well, right? So there are these great shots of you looking out at the Muppet audience from the stage, and they do this because all of a sudden you yourself become a Muppet. And what I love about this is it's just like boxing, right? There's no barrier between the fan and the audience, right? Unlike every other sport where there's a very, very clear fourth wall, boxing, I mean, there's the ring and there's some ropes, yeah, but the audience is almost there. You see it from the shots, like as the boxers do their thing, you see it in the shots. You're almost every once in a while seeing it from one of the fighters' eyes and like where the audience is reacting as a punch is being thrown or as a moment, or oftentimes too you see this from like from behind a corner, during some of the fights that I've seen. You definitely see this trope being used in the movies, especially most recently Creed, and Ryan Coogler used a whole lot of this in him to really bring you into the ring. And there's no other sport that does that, right? You can't go to a hockey game or a basketball game and feel that level of closeness. And even when you're watching on TV, it just doesn't have that same level of intimacy. I think that's the big one, right? It's just that's the big lesson is you've got to.
You had me at gotta. Have we lost an internet connection? No, say it ain't so. I posted on Facebook this morning on my personal page the fact that Rocky used Rocky 3 used the Muppet Show as part of their campaign to launch their movie. So just sort of throw that in there while we're waiting for Randy, our guest speaker, to come back online. And maybe that's because we have 17,000 live viewers right now. It's pretty good. Come on, Randy, come on back. I got one more question for you, and you can go back to your Sunday afternoon. Did anyone else see the food fight between Gordon Ramsay and the Swedish chef? Did you know that what they also have in common with boxing is that was introduced by Michael Buffer? Let's get ready to rumble. But I don't think he said that in the actual Muppets show. I think it was called a Muppisode. But nonetheless, it's a pretty famous Muppisode called The Food Fight. And it's basically food truck wars. Are you back, Randy? Let's get your microphone back on there. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. No. Might have to refresh floors one more time. That's too bad. That's too bad. I myself, you there, Randy? Hey, caramba. To quote, what the heck? You there, Randy? Well, boxing fans, looks like we might have lost Randy for our episode, which is too bad. I did have some questions lined up for him with respect to his perspective on his world of human resources and the world of boxing, because rarely do we take a look at the several different aspects of a fighter, not just his skills in the ring, but the many components of a human being. You there, Randy? Are you with us? No? Well, we might have to invite Randy back for another episode. I was really looking forward to hearing some of his acute wisdom when it came to, as I was saying earlier, these parallels in his world, his professional world of human resources, and shall we say, the lack of human resources in the boxing world. It's purely based on fighting talent. But is it? And that's a good question too. Is the reason that certain boxers move up the ladder purely based on their fighting skills, or is it these interpersonal skills that they have or have not in dealing with agents, managers, promoters? So when I get Randy back, we'll set him up for another episode. How's that? Thanks very much for joining us on Talkin' Fight. Really sorry about the technical difficulties on Randy's side there, But look forward to having him back and look forward to seeing you again. Thanks very much for joining me.